Welcome to Industry Conversations. MES is holding a series of discussions with industry professionals to explore the magnitude of possible career paths that mechanical engineering can take you. Today we're focusing on supply chain and logistics and have Cam joining us from Carlton United Breweries to answer your submitted questions. Cam grew up in Wagga and went to school in Sydney before coming down to Melbourne Uni to study. He's firstly studied an undergrad in commerce, majoring in finance, before doing the Masters of Mechanical Engineering. He spent 3 years on MES, firstly as a committee member, then treasurer, and finally president. He did an internship for GHD, working as a project engineer in Wagga in his penultimate year, and applied for a range of different grad jobs before landing one at CUB. The grad program is a rotation-based program where he spent 2 to 6 weeks in almost every part of the business, from marketing, sales, logistics, brewery, finance, procurement, and so on. He is now the returnable assets manager in supply chain and logistics.
How are you going with everything? With
Yeah, all right, mate.
I suppose there's not too many kegs flying around Melbourne at the moment.
We've sort of flipped the switch, and we've now, my jobs have become the opposite, where I've got to get all, there's like a bit of a project team from a few different parts of the business, and we're all basically got to get all the kegs back from around Australia and get them emptied and then stored and ready to go for whenever they open the pubs up again. But we don't know at this point. The business is kind of guessing. Their soft date is September 1st, but obviously no one has any idea. And realistically, looking at some of the reports coming out now, I mean, they'll start to relax some of the social distancing and whatnot, but I can't see them letting you go back to, going to the footy or going to the pub or that kind of thing for a while. Could be months before they let you kind of do that, all that social interaction, because that's where the danger will lie. If you get 100 random strangers in a place like a pub together or the footy together, that's where you get to kick off again and be right back in the shitter. So, yeah, but it's interesting, mate. So we don't really know. We've got between 400 and 600,000 kegs around Australia. We get different estimates from different people in the business who have the job, and we've basically just got to get them all from the pubs and get them back to our brewery, either in Queensland or here in Victoria, and get them all emptied. So there's been a whole heap of work around building bits of kit to empty kegs, because normally we're only emptying, like maybe a couple of hundred a week because they're returned for whatever reason, and now we've got to empty 200,000+ kegs. So it's been a whole piece of work that had to go into designing new bits of kit and then working out what's the best way to get which kegs to go back to which brewery and blah, blah, which has been pretty interesting, like good for my learning and kind of funny, because I've been put in charge of one part of the project and I literally feel like I've been here for a minute, which I have. I've been in this job since late January. So when the whole COVID thing kicked off in late Feb and we shut down the pubs in March, I've literally been here for about 6 weeks, and then they just plonk you in charge of part of the project and whatnot. So I've been learning quite a bit. It's been interesting, luckily in a reasonably safe industry where I think the pubs are about 30% of our business. So we're down on sales, but we've still got the other 70% of our business operating. So it's not the worst thing.
And I get, what's your role in getting the kegs back? Like, are you reaching out to your pubs and clubs to organise the beer to come back, or are you more dealing with the macro numbers?
I'm dealing with the supply chain side. So there's a few guys on the sales and commercial side of the business that are dealing with the customer facing stuff. So talking with the pubs, working out what's there, working out getting it picked up and whatnot. And then my piece is really from distribution centre back to brewery, and then tipped at brewery and into storage. So in terms of getting the front end stuff, I don't touch, talking to customers, getting kegs picked up from pubs and whatnot. But as soon as it's back at one of our distribution centres, then it's sort of my role to get it back to brewery, get it tipped, and get it into a storage location, ready and waiting.
So you're doing more the logistical side of things, and getting trucks organised. And
yeah, I'm sort of very much, my role sits in logistics at CUB, so that's sort of my remit. supply chain logistics at the moment is what I'm doing. So it's pretty interesting though. It's a pretty big logistics network. So
Yeah.
you got to get gear all around the country.
What about the changes in like the consumer spending? How did you deal with the increased demand there?
Yeah,
You have to manage that side of it.
It was pretty tough for so we have a whole team that is called they do the demand planning, which basically they sit in logistics as well. Logistics and planning sort of sit together. And that's sort of the supply chain stuff. And we have a whole team of demand planners, they call, which is 4 or 5 people that basically work with our sales team to work out what the forecast is for how much beer we're going to sell. And so they had a really, I mean, they're having a really tough time because it's sort of, how do you put a number around how much you think sales are going to be affected? And so obviously, normally it's the sales guys telling you they'll sell everything. They'll sell you the, an unlimited amount of beer, and then the demand team sort of put more realistic numbers around it. And then they give that, whatever their sort of forecast is, obviously goes to the next supply planning team who work out, okay, if we're going to sell this much beer, how much do we need to make at this place? How much do we make at this place? How many materials do we need to make it? And that kind of stuff. But our demand team had no idea what they were playing with. Literally, even before the pubs were closed, we were like, all right, do we think keg sales are going to be down 10%, 30%, 50%, 60%? We're like, right, let's plan for all those scenarios. And then we woke up on Tuesday and they just closed the pubs completely. And we're like, oh, bugger. All right,
Yeah.
how much, now the pubs are closed, how much do we think the pack sale is going to pick up? And again, we had, you try and put some ideas around it, but you don't really know. So the way the business sort of goes is because we have so much uncertainty around it, you go into building out your stock levels. So if you don't know how much you're going to sell of what, the safest thing to do is just get more stock on hand and just sit on more beer effectively in case something happens. And then you sort of, instead of sitting on, we would normally sit on 10 days to 2 weeks cover for our different, for like VB, Carlton Draft, different SKUs, that kind of thing, which obviously takes up a certain amount of warehouse space and costs a certain amount in our supply chain. What we did was we just ramped up production and worked towards, all right, let's get 21 plus days cover of these beers on hand, so that if the breweries have to shut down or we end up selling more than we think we are or anything happens, we've at least got a little bit more time to react to that, rather than running such a lean operation, which is obviously, running lean is more cost effective normally because you don't have to pay for as much storage or transport of stuff, and there's a whole bunch of benefits there, and you can be more reactive as well. But when you don't know what's going on, you kind of just go for safety and build a bit of fat in for the uncertainty.
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting. Because normally you'd think that that having high inventory is risky at the moment in terms of if it doesn't sell, you're sitting on beer that's passing its use by date. But I guess you're probably at no risk of with your supply chain still coming, with your demand still coming through from the consumer side. You're still going to be running through the inventory, so it's just giving you a bit more room to breathe, I guess.
Yeah, well, once the bottle shops got deemed an essential service, and we looked around and no one anywhere else in the world had closed bottle shops, we're sort of like, okay, well, we're going to still be able to sell pack beer, so that shouldn't be a worry. Our pack beer has 9 months shelf life as well, so
right.
So you can, whereas kegs are about 2 to 3 months, pack beer is 9 months. So you can, if you build out your safety stock and you end up sitting on a bit extra, you've got a few months to work. You've got plenty of time to work through it. So
I suppose I know you haven't really had a normal day in your job yet, but would you normally be looking at the future supply chain as opposed to the day-to-day side of things, or are you supposed to look at sort of both areas?
So my day-to-day would be very much would be looking at where kegs are in the network at that time, and then trying to work out forecasting out and looking at the next sort of 2, 3, 4 weeks where there might be issues. If we don't get enough kegs back, or we've got a huge couple of weeks of production coming up, we're going to be really tight in terms of getting empty kegs back that are going to be available to fill. So if we decide that, well, I mean, this is actually quite a prime example, is that what I should have been going through right now is Easter and Anzac Day is one of the busiest times for us, because obviously it's a double long weekend, and then you normally get Anzac Day as well. So it's normally massive for, especially for kegs and that kind of thing. There's a lot of on-premise volume. A lot of people go to the pub, all that kind of stuff. So we normally, in terms of kegs, it's very tight. It gets very tight at that point because we're trying to pump out maximum production. And we've only got enough kegs to sort of just cover when we're running like that. And a keg sort of will turn around every 30, 40 days-ish. So it takes a while once you fill a keg, get out of the net, wait for it to come back. So you kind of starting to plan and look daily at where we're up to, what's where, what DCs are holding what's coming back, what can I expect, what's the production plan say for the next couple of weeks, and what am I expecting to get back into what areas, to see, okay, I think I've got a gap here of a couple of thousand kegs. Maybe the brewery up in Queensland looks like it's going to be short, and the brewery down in Tasmania has too many. Change some loads around and move some more empty kegs up into Queensland over the next week or two to cover that off. Take a few out of Tasmania because they're already sitting on enough or too many or whatever, that kind of thing. Big part of it is it's literally very day-to-day operations. I'm talking to different people, to all the different DCs daily, to different people in the DCs, and getting an understanding of what's going on. It's quite an operational role. Even though I sort of sit in South Bank, I tend to split my time 50-50 between the head office and down on the brewery, and being sort of down on the ground with the guys running the operation. So yeah, it's good fun.
Did you do a bit of that in your graduate rotation? I know you said that they move you around all the different business areas, I guess.
Yeah, so the grad program's pretty good in that way, that you do a bit of time in every part of the business. So obviously the biggest parts of the business are supply, which is breweries, and then sales and marketing are the three biggest functions in the whole business. So you'll do about a 6-week stint in each of those areas because they're the biggest, and get probably a pretty meaty project or something to work on over your time there. You'll get time with the senior leaders in those areas. They'll tell you about what they do, their day to day, run you through their sort of 1-year plan, 3-year plan, how this area works with other different areas, and learn all that kind of stuff, and then give you a project or a piece of work to do. And then the other functions, you'll get time in all the other functions: finance, logistics, procurement, even solutions, the IT stuff and all that kind of thing, for between a couple of days and a week or two, for the other areas, because they're not quite as big. But you'll still get a similar sort of thing where they'll run you through what they do and that kind of stuff. But the very first one they do after they give you a 4-week induction is send you down for 6 weeks in the brewery. And that's a bit of a baptism of fire for a lot of people, because there's so many people. I think my year, there were 17 grads in my stream, and there were 3 or 4 of us who were engineers, and then the rest were a lot of commerce majors, but there are even some just straight up arts or like geography or whatever majors.
Oh, wow.
They're willing to take anyone and everyone. So those sorts of people, like even for me, it was a bit of a baptism of fire being down the brewery and getting handed an engineering project, but they sort of gave, toned down, but still engineering-based projects to everybody to do for 6 weeks, and you're supposed to get up and present a bit of work at the end, and hopefully show you've made some improvement or done some decent analysis on some part of the brewery to help with the running day-to-day of it. So,
and does engineering give you the edge on that?
It does. But then
And
they
in your
also,
current role, mechanical
yeah,
engineering was the best degree to set you up.
yeah, mate, absolutely. Engineering number one, mech eng number one. Nah, for sure. I think the people who did engineering grad program, like getting out, having an understanding of how a production facility like and a manufacturing facility like a brewery operates, is pretty valuable. And then you even sort of really understand supply chain and logistics pretty easily as well. Like you understand how process driven things like that operate, which really helps when you going into a lot of areas of the business, because you kind of just naturally understand why the business would make this decision or go this way at the end of the day as from a manufacturing point of view. But the idea of the program is that they give you exposure to everything, so that even those who end up in marketing have spent some time in the brewery, understand why they can't just make a glass bottle ridiculously thin, or make it out of glass or stainless steel, or come up with a ridiculous idea that looks good from a marketing point of view, but is completely unachievable from a manufacturing point of view, which is good. But yeah, I think definitely engineering gives you that. You already know that. You already know marketing.
Yeah, the realistic approach, right?
Yeah, I definitely think engineering and the engineering and commerce combo as well was a pretty good advantage to the job. You definitely kind of, not that everybody sort of picks it up through the grad program, but you kind of already get how the business runs in a lot of ways and why it makes the decisions it makes. So.
Yeah. And so I guess I'm doing the commerce eng double as well. But what was your sort of logic for jumping on that train, and I guess going from coming out of school, deciding to go into commerce, and then were you always set on doing mechanical engineering, or was that something developed with the influence of mess or whatever else?
No, mine was always, I was always of the gonna do engineering at uni ilk, for sure. Like straight out, always loved science at school, like physics and chemistry and maths. Loved it. Wanted to do engineering at uni, and then got to decide I was going to go to Melbourne Uni, and then realised the Melbourne model was you had to do an undergrad first before you could do engineering. And so it kind of worked out for me in the end, but I thought it would be, I just didn't really see the point in doing science. And then engineering, I thought if you do commerce, then engineering, it'd just be, well, also it'd be a bit more variety over the course of uni, so I probably wouldn't get as bored and more likely to stick through it. And I'm reasonably commerce and finance focused as well. Like I find business interesting as well. So I figured it would just be a good double to have, doing it that way.
So any advice for people maybe in their first, second, third year? They're in their undergrad, they've got a long way to go. How do they start building up their repertoire, or helping to maximize the university experience?
My definite piece of advice on engineering and that kind of thing, if you're going forward, is just make some mates to do it with, because you generally find those who get through it. It's you get through it together kind of mentality. You just got to find your other group of battler engineering mates, and you just grind it out together, and you get through it, and you hate it and you love it, and it's the best and worst thing you'll ever do with your life. But you definitely can't do it alone. That's for sure. That's the one thing about engineering, is you can't do it alone. You just need a couple of people to get you through it. So mess is a good place to start making those connections early if you're in your first year or two. And it actually mess got me my job as well, because the CUB contacted mess over Facebook when I was president, and wanted to connect with the club and some of the social stuff that we did. And that's how I got talking and found out about the grad program, and how I got my foot in the door of getting the grad program and stuff as well. So I have full credit to mess and getting involved in being a committee member, then treasurer, then president, eventually landing me my job at a beer company. So if there's no better endorsement than that, I reckon, than being a part of it.
What about the favourite subject at uni?
My favourite undergrad subject when I was doing commerce was a subject called sports economics with Jeff Borland, which I would highly recommend to anyone who has a free subject as a science or eng kid to go and do. If you like sport at all, super interesting and really, really cool. Lecturer Jeff Borland was like he's a guy who did a lot of, he did Moneyball before Moneyball was a thing. He wrote papers that became that whole sports statistics, building a team around sports statistics rather than recruiting, and that kind of thing. So really interesting. And then my favourite engineering subject, I'd say, was fluid dynamics with Nico Hutchins in the Masters. I think he's a great lecturer, and I thoroughly enjoyed that subject. I thought it was just super, super interesting. Like, you study engineering. A lot of the time you wonder why you do it. And then you get to a subject like fluid dynamics and you get to the end of it and you realize you've just learned how a plane flies. And you're like, that is really cool. You're like, that's why you study engineering, is to do a subject like that and learn how a plane flies. Like, that's awesome.
Any other advice for budding engineers, mate?
I would say do enough extracurricular stuff. So do enough society stuff. Get a job or an internship or something that you can, even if you don't think it's relevant. If you're going for jobs and stuff, it's really useful to be able to talk to actual experience outside of university. So I know even for CUB, they often, a lot of the people who applied and eventually got jobs there, all they did was work at Kmart during uni or work at Woolies or whatever. And you sort of think, oh, so what? But the thing is that they're customer facing roles. And so if you can talk to experience of how you've worked for a company, worked in a customer facing role, understood a customer's problems, understood how you can help with that kind of thing, they're all valuable experiences that a lot of businesses like want to see that you have those skills. And so it's not necessarily about the having the glitzy, I did an internship at Goulburn or whatever. Like it doesn't really, it can be literally as simple as I worked here doing this and this was my experience and this is what I learned from it. If you can talk to it, that's all that matters. So that's all you need, is something to talk to, rather than saying you've got the best thing in the world and you're an amazing person. You just need to be able to have something, rather than just saying your only examples are, I learned working through a team through uni stuff. If all your examples are uni, it's not much chop. You just need some outside experience from that.